Welcome to the Long Take Review, where four college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sipchacha Bankard, and I'm here with three filthy multiples. First, he's an expendable. He's here to be expended. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
On Earth, nothing was working out, and I wanted to get the hell out of there. I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing great. Oh, I should have realized you'd bring it. I'm doing great, thank you. And he's still good meat. He tastes fine. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
One time in the 4th grade, I messed around with a lab frog. I figure this is my punishment. I'm good, Jen. I actually was planning to use the same quote because I hadn't read the document. So I had to change that at the very last second. So apologies.
It's all right. I appreciate your agility. And last but not least, I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming a special guest to the show for the first time. So I did lie earlier when I said 4 professors. We have 3, and then a really extra special guest. I'm not confident he's read through the paperwork, though. He couldn't have knowingly signed up for this. It's Hasib Hossein. How are you doing, Hasib?
What's it feel like to die, guys?
And that is the question. Well done. You fit right in.
I was actually going to use PTs, but yeah.
And I actually
first. Just take the quotes from everyone.
That's true. I guess I should change the order.
No,
it's just, I duplicate the same outline document every time, so it's like that's why it doesn't change. But I could change it anyway. Hasib is our #1 gold star, most engaged listener. He rocks. And we couldn't be happier that we finally we actually off mic, we're just saying how weird it was that we were actually talking to him live in real time as opposed to on a pigeon carrier delay. And of course, those were all references, dear listeners, to the film we are here to review today with Hasib, Bong Joon Ho's Mickey 17, which is out in theaters now. But weirdly will be available to rent or buy next week, March 26th. It's already going to VOD. We'll talk about that probably towards the end. This film is adapted from a novel by Edward Ashton called Mickey 7. Mickey 17 chronicles the trials and tribulations of the down on his luck Mickey Barnes, which you heard 2 impressions of just now, who agrees to die for a living as an expendable, accompanying an expedition to colonize the planet Niflheim. We're not making this up, folks. Each time he dies, he can be reprinted again. And that's the premise of the movie. If you are listening to us for the first time, we will have a spoiler-free section designed for those who have not yet seen the film. And then with a very clear alert, we will shift into spoiler mode for the rest of the show. But PT, if listeners want to keep reprinting us after listening to this episode, what can they do?
If you want to follow in the footsteps of Hasib and become one of our favorite listeners, then please follow the Long Take Review wherever you get your podcasts. We host the feed on Jen's Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, many more places. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. You can also follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review, and we're also on Letterboxd. The account is at LTR Pod. You can follow us there, or you could search for the hashtag LTR Pod to see what each of us individually have been watching. Jen?
Thanks, PT. So, as always, we'll start with a short take. What was everyone's general reaction to Mickey 17? I think guest privileges makes it so that Hasib goes first.
I was a humongous fan, but I'm also part of the Bong Hive as well. I am a big fan of Comrade Bong, as I should actually call him.
Yes.
So anti-capitalist, which I appreciate, and very anti-institution. And he just speaks to me on so many levels on all of his movies. So I was just a huge fan of this. How about you, PT?
Yeah, I was really down. I did feel like there's notes. I think, I'm not alone in saying that. Hasib, you also had said that before we started recording. There's some issues. It's not perfect, but this is and it's an adaptation, but still it feels like it is a fresh new sci-fi story. Heavy, maybe heavy-handed with the social satire, but okay. I don't mind that. Like, I don't mind that it's bludgeoning us over the head with some messages, because guess what? We haven't learned them. We don't know. We've not figured out what to do with it yet. So yeah, I think just some really fun performances and a really good time at the movies. And yeah, it's more Bong. It's taken too long for us to get more Bong Joon Ho. So I was so happy to sit in the theater and watch it. As someone who doesn't like Bong Joon Ho, Greg, what did you think about this?
First of all, how dare you? We were not doing this podcast when Parasite came out, but I still sat in my basement and talked about it for 3 hours at the wall, just to talk about how much I loved Parasite. Which actually is very fitting for Parasite now that I put that together.
Love it.
So I was trying to think back to like my enthusiasm for this movie, because it's been such a weird, crazy journey. Like, they delayed it a lot and then they moved it back up. And, I think coming off of Parasite, my enthusiasm was really high and I couldn't wait to see what he did next. And then, I would count myself amongst the crowd that when the trailer came out, I was like, this is what we're doing. But I wasn't sure about a lot of those pieces. So I will say, sitting down to the theater, I had been looking forward to it for a long time, and it is very much a good, fun time at the movies. I would say that if you won Best Director, Best Picture, and you got a studio to give you $400 million, maybe, the budget's unconfirmed, but it seems like a lot of money. Then if you wanted to spend that giving a social commentary message that the world needs to hear, as you said, that we haven't learned, that we still look to our institutions to save us, and so on. All power to you, and great respect for Director Bong for doing so, and it has given me the occasion to go back and watch more of his previous films, and I've very much enjoyed that. It's a great career and some real masterpieces in it. This wouldn't rank at the top of that list for me, but that's okay. I don't do my best work every time out either, and I still have to recommend it to people. Like, I mean, what are you gonna see instead? Well, probably Black Bag, which is awesome, but other than that, you're gonna it's still a light time of year, definitely worth your movie ticket. Don't go give Disney your money for Snow White. Go see some creepers. So but Jen, how did you feel about Mickey 17? Which I believe, can you confirm, did you see it alone in the theater? Like,
I did.
Totally alone?
By yourself?
Literally the only person in the entire theater.
Oh,
Gen 1.
And I was seated in the back row because it was Screen X, which was not necessarily on purpose. But yeah, I'll explain what it is in a second. Everyone's looking at me like, what? But it's a PLF, a premium large format. But basically it is a regular movie screen, but then projected onto both the left and right walls also. So it's supposed to be as if you're watching the movie with like a VR headset on, I think is the way that the internet described it to me before I went. And so picture like the movie screen just like spilling onto the walls next to you. And so the idea is that it's more immersive. I actually would not recommend this at all. It was not good. Because I kept thinking, why are they doing this when I can still see the crack in the wall? There's like a huge black line on each side of the screen. And I kept wondering, am I looking at the movie as Bong Joon Ho intended, or am I looking at a weird distortion of it? Like, it was very unclear where the frame actually ended versus did they add more? Like, is there a separate cut for this? I don't know. So it was pretty distracting, to be honest. So I wouldn't recommend doing Screen X. 4DX is a good time depending on the movie, because it's basically you're on a theme park ride in addition to watching a movie. But this just felt like a weird distortion of what I was actually supposed to be watching. All that said, I still really enjoyed this movie. I liked the sci-fi comedy part of it a lot better than the political satire part of it, which we'll get into probably in spoiler mode about why that is. But in general, I was here for it. It does need an edit in a couple places, I would say. And that's really my only note for it. Maybe the satire is too heavy-handed, but really, like, it could have been. It's kind of trying to do too much, but in a way that feels like a culmination of so many things that Bong Joon Ho has done in his other movies. Like, it kind of felt the same way as watching The Boy and the Heron, where I was like, oh, here's a little bit of this movie, here's a little bit of this movie. It's all kind of coming together. And so I think there's a little bit of that going on. I think it's not as cohesive as The Boy and the Heron, probably, but it did have that feeling of the kind of like, we've been working towards this sort of magnum opus. It's all happening at once kind of movie. A lot of critics are saying that means it's too overstuffed. We can debate that. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think, and also no one's mentioned it, Robert Pattinson, A++. Loved him in this. He's so good. He's reason enough to see it, even if you're like kind of apprehensive about other aspects of it. But maybe that's probably a good segue into the recommendation algorithm, in which we establish the audience of a film. There we go. So this segment acknowledges that not every film is for everyone. Do you have to be a Bong Joon Ho superfan like Hasib to like this movie? Or who is this movie for? Who are we recommending it to?
I don't think you have to be like a just exclusive. I think it is for the Bong hits for sure. Like they should be there. They should have already seen it. I don't know what they're waiting for if they haven't. But I would say what I'll pitch this for is to anybody who likes sci-fi and particularly sci-fi as commentary on sort of current life and current modern day life, which maybe is all sci-fi. Maybe that's inherent to the genre. But I think that, people who are just sort of like a little tired of franchise stuff. I think we say this all the time where it's like, oh, all they do is make franchises and reboots and blah, blah, blah. This isn't that. So if that's something you've been saying you want, then you should go and see it. You should be maybe not in that theater, but you should make sure Jen's not seeing the movie alone, and be buying tickets and filling out some of those seats. So yeah, I think that to start, it would be go see some original sci-fi. Again, original with it's adapted from a book, but like it's not based on an old movie. It's not based on a thing you watched as a kid, and that's good, and that's something that I think you can enjoy. What do y'all think? Hasib, what do you think?
I want to add, if you're into original sci-fi movies, you definitely need to check this out. But I would add the fact that if you're into like early 80s sci-fi John Carpenter movies, where thematically just hammers you over the head with his themes, then you would be totally into this movie.
Well said. And I just realized your shirt is totally on theme for it. There it is.
Nice.
I actually thought that was a Carpenter shirt. I fell for the parody. I think my main recommendation would be people who love Robert Pattinson. And I speak specifically, I have a friend who I think has watched The Batman like 75 times since it came out, and that's a 3.5 hour movie. I think like I fell asleep just for the beginning, and so I think if you've enjoyed Robert Pattinson in one of those franchise properties, letting him see just a totally crazy unhinged performance that totally delivers. And actually I was pitching it to this friend because he hadn't gone yet, and I was saying it's actually two good performances, right? It's like two separate characters that he's performing, which I didn't fully expect based on the trailer, and that's really good. But I also just want to shout out Naomi Ackie, who's kind of quietly building a really good career. I didn't think Blink Twice was flawless. That's the other star of the Batman's directorial debut, but Naomi Ackie was excellent in that, and she's excellent in this. I confess I did not see the Whitney Houston biopic that I believe she starred in, but not everybody who gets a role in a Star Wars movie that's kind of derided, and the movie was derided that she was in, gets to kind of keep chugging along. But she's got a great career and delivers nicely, and she's having a ton of fun here too. When this is in the trailer, so I can talk about it in this section, when she pitches the threesome between her and the two Pattinsons, it just felt like a very real, very funny joke, and it totally got me, and she was great too. So Jen, do you recommend people go see this not in 4DX?
Yes, I do. I say just avoid the Screen X. And the other thing, this is the last thing I'll complain about, it's not the whole movie that's like that. it goes back and
Oh, yeah.
forth, like at certain scenes. I don't know. It's a very confusing proposition. It's
I can't believe no one wanted to go.
And yeah.
No one, yeah,
Well,
no one, yeah, right.
It was only $6 because I have Regal Unlimited, so like it didn't cost me a lot, so I wasn't like mad about it. But I was like, well, I guess I will avoid this in the future. Yeah, it was really strange. I kept being like, where's the why are you trying to compete with the Mugar Omni Theater in Boston? Because it's I'm like, why isn't this just a curved screen?
That was good.
Who put the bump in the bump?
Oh, Leonard Nimoy, we love you. Leonard Nimoy probably would really like this movie. Anyway, that's who I'm recommending it to. the late Leonard Nimoy. So yeah, I think that it's funny because I've heard a lot of critics trying to recommend this movie in the context using the parlance of, or the, I guess, no, not parlance, using the lexicon of other Bong Joon Ho movies. And a lot of people are like, well, it's like Okja crossed with Snowpiercer, which is not wrong. So I guess that's what I would say is it is a lot more on the side of the kind of over the top performances of something like Okja and kind of the over the top action of something like Snowpiercer more than the kind of tightly wound thriller aspect of Parasite, right? So I think there might be a divide in terms of like, if you only like Parasite out of Bong Joon Ho's filmography, it does kind of stick out in the sense that it is a little bit more, I mean, there's a reason it probably got so much awards attention. It is leans slightly more prestige, slightly more focused and precise in its storytelling. And this is not that. So I would say, I don't think that would deter people from watching the movie, but I would say that's a good managing your expectations in terms of like, what are you expecting from this movie, right? If you're expecting Parasite, you might be like, huh? But I don't know if other people agree with that.
Yeah, just to add to that, like my two favorite directors are Jordan Peele and Bong Joon Ho, and it's mainly because two of their main influences are Hitchcock and Carpenter. Whereas where Peele can like combine them into one movie, I feel like Bong is more like, these are for my Hitchcock heads and these are for my Carpenter heads.
Yeah.
And that dichotomy just totally, I get it. I'm all about it. So that's why I'm a big Bong Joon Ho guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other references that we want to make in terms of like, if people like something that like this, or do we think the other Bong Joon Ho films kind of speak for themselves? I would say Starship Troopers. If you like Starship Troopers, you probably like this movie.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah, but the general like Paul Verhoeven style sci-fi of Starship Troopers, Total Recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of like the irreverence might be the wrong word, but the kind of sort of, I don't know, like, yeah, what's the right adjective? It's not irreverence. It's
there's something about it that's really over the top, where that is like gleefully maximalist
goofy
in how they're doing it, and yeah, it gets a little goofy at times. And I think if you don't get on the wave, like just like this is dumb, but it's not like it has, and again it's also very unsubtle in a way that I don't think is bad, and I think that. Hasib, you're making a great point, as well as speaking my language when you're talking about John Carpenter, where it's just like you shouldn't miss it. Like it's not difficult to like piece together the quote unquote message of what's going on, but like that doesn't mean it's bad, and that doesn't mean it's like done poorly. That's part of the construction. That's part of the intent. Is like, yeah, it is saying these things, and like you can have fun while that's a part of this as well. And so I think that, if it's something where you're so, there's people who like are bad at, and I don't think there's any listeners here who would feel this way, but there's, or this would apply to, there's people who like are not good at interpreting what something says. They don't really have sort of media literacy skills, and they're like, I don't really understand what's happening. Then there are people who like digging into that so much that if it's not like effort to do it, then they're like, well, then this failed because I should have had to spend time on the car ride home unpacking this for me to fully understand it. And I think that like in a Parasite, that's true, because there are layers and there's sort of hints and implications around that. Whereas like with this, it's just sort of like, it's right there, it's on the surface, it's not a question. It's not difficult, but that doesn't mean it isn't fun, and that doesn't mean it isn't something that can be enjoyed.
Yeah, and I would put The Host in that category as well, even though it's probably a lot more subtle than Okja, Snowpiercer, and this movie is, but also like it's a little bit more maximalist as well. So
The Host is the movie why like I don't buy the divide of like Hollywood bong versus Korean bong, because The Host is definitely on that Hollywood side, like quote unquote, because it is that it's the maximalist, like maybe obvious kind of movie. But man, I love The Host. The Host is so good.
no notes on The Host.
I like Jen too.
Oh, thanks, Greg. All right, that probably means we need to go to spoiler mode. So
And pause for
moving
the
right
edit,
along.
and good. All right.
So, if you have not seen Mickey 17 and you do not wish it to be spoiled, this is your chance to turn back now. There's no do-overs at this point, unlike for Mickey. So you need to exit stage left if you don't want to hear any spoilers after this point. Hasib, ready with the getaway car for our heist, because that's always what I think of when I hear that music.
Jen, I'll take over here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So I actually want to start this section because Jen has some really excellent, like, pinpoint questions. Let's talk about all the messages. But just before we hit that level, can I just ask each of the three of you to give me, like, your favorite completely over-the-top moment from this? Because to me, what I'll remember is those crazy, this is so ridiculous moments. I just wonder if you had, like, one favorite scene or image or character beat or even a line that really stood out to you. So I'll take volunteers since I'm putting you all on the spot.
Yeah, I'll go first. So my favorite gag in the movie is every time they would reprint Mickey, they would show different ways that the doctors in the office would mess up, and I could not stop laughing at that.
Yeah, the point where he just like they forgot to put the cot part extension,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just like dripping out of the machine. It's so good. And then someone turns around, they realize, because I think the person who's supposed to be paying attention is on his phone or something.
Yeah,
This is incredible.
it was an incredible. I think it was a montage, right? But yeah.
I think what Mickey's 2 through probably 16, right? Like that's we get the montage for that. And the other thing too, now that we're talking about that, just the small thing of like, as he's coming out, it does really feel like he's coming out of a printer where it's like kind of he jiggles a little bit and it like goes back and forth a little bit, like it's like a bad fax machine. Like
it's like an Epsom or a Canon.
The stutter got a laugh every time in my theater, like, and not just from me, but from other people too. It, like, I thought that was perfect. I don't know if this is like big wacky moment. There, my immediate reaction to your question, Greg, was Robert Pattinson falling downstairs, which I think happens like 2 or 3 times in the movie, and it's. I'm sure there's some like photographic trickery they could do. There's at least one time where I'm like, that was him, because like he lands and like there's no break unless they do some sort of. I'm pretty sure he did that stunt. Like he did that and he did it incredibly well. And I saw on my perusal of the Wikipedia page for this movie that he was like, I'm partly inspired by Jim Carrey for the choices I made in this performance. I was like, oh, I could see it in some of the physical comedy moves. So I'm going to say that combined with every time Toni Collette talked about sauces as my over the top moments that just like stuck with me after seeing it.
I really didn't like those scenes.
I swear she was doing her Knives Out character, and that's not a complaint. Like it's just the evolution of that character. It totally worked for me. Yeah.
I'm gonna plant a flag. We can come back to it. I saw someone somewhere, and I cannot even remember where, posit that the movie would be better if Mark Ruffalo's character was just folded into Toni Collette, and Toni Collette did all of those things as the character that she was playing. And I don't know if that's wrong. I love Mark Ruffalo, and I love, I liked a lot of the things he was doing in the movie. But like, what if Toni Collette was the like cult leader, person in addition to the sauce lady.
I do feel like there's a lot going on in terms of the establishment that everyone's whispering in Marshall's ear. And so
Yeah.
I feel like her being a separate character is pretty essential because it's her whispering in his ear and then the bald guy with the piercings, right? Who's the religious figure who's constantly telling him what to do and directing his every move. So I feel like from that sense, it's necessary for her to be a separate character. But oh man, yeah, and like when they're slicing up the tail, this is terrible. It's like she's the worst. She's got to go.
What's your moment, Jen? Don't dodge the question.
So I think really anything with the creepers, but when I think I'll just go with when the creepers are like, no, we're gonna explode all your brains, and then they just kind of like rear up and like do this like war cry, and they're like with their and they're all doing it at the same time, and just all those scenes where they just like cut to all of the creepers just kind of milling around in this weird like swarm. I don't know. I loved all that stuff. All the creature effects in this I thought were really good.
How bad do you want a creeper doll?
So here's the thing. I've come dangerously close to buying one. I found but here's the thing is that the place that you can see that appears to be the place to buy them is Walmart.
Oh.
And two things that are holding me back. One is it feels like black market, secondhand market.
Oh, I've seen that link.
People grab them at the premiere, or they got them like in the mail as like with their like a screener or something. You know what I mean? Like, and now they're reselling them, which I don't want to participate in if that's the case, because I think they're all third-party sellers on Walmart.com. And then the other thing that's holding me back is like, isn't me giving money to Walmart for a plush toy? Isn't that part of the problem?
Right.
I don't want to disappoint Bong Joon Ho. You know what I mean? I don't want to be part of the problem. So that's why I haven't done it yet, but it's come close. I've looked it up like 3 or 4 times and been like, but it's really cute. What if this is I also don't want to be ripped off. That's the other thing is like, I don't know if these are real.
I don't want a Temu version either.
Yeah.
Amen. I'll just throw in. So my gag that killed me is in the mix of the climax and everything's going crazy, and Mark Ruffalo gets out there in his little car and they have him have a ring light right there.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody in a poorly lit basement that never thinks about that. It's like, oh yeah, because the cult leader has to look exactly right for his big message. And I was gonna say this in the non-spoiler section, so I'll just throw it in here because the three of you reminded me in your conversation. So often I have students that will complain about a piece of literature or an article, and they'll be like, they did it this way and they didn't mean to do that. And I'm always like, it's on purpose. Nothing is in an article or a short story because they like forgot to delete it or something like that. And so when you were talking about the tone, it's like absolutely right to say like they wanted it to be this over the top and this silly at times. Nobody in this thinks they're doing Shakespeare, right? They think they're doing something bigger. So I thought that, for me, I'll remember the ring light as kind of the emblem of that kind of crazy, let's just really make it ridiculous attitude.
All right. So I guess that leads us to the question, and Greg's sort of preloading an answer probably in defense of the movie, but how do you feel about the satire? A lot of people are complaining that it's too heavy-handed, it's too obvious, that in particular, the parallels to actual political figures in the world in charge right now is just too like it's too lined up and therefore kind of uncouth. I think it seems to be the general sentiment for people who are not appreciating the movie. So I mean, what are our thoughts about that? Greg sort of defending it like, it's supposed to be that way. It's on purpose. But I've even heard people saying, and to be honest, I'm a little bit leaning this way. I think Mark Ruffalo's performance is my least favorite in the movie. It's just, and maybe that's just because I don't want to have to watch it fictionally or in real life. But he definitely has the most grating performance in terms of he's definitely doing an impression, kind of, right? I don't know. Yeah.
I agree with you because it's hard to watch his performance because I'm already getting it in real life already. So it's like I don't need a double whammy of this version. He's also my least favorite performance. So, but I don't mind heavy-handedness in terms of satire or political messaging or social messaging. I watch Spike Lee movies. He's pretty damn heavy-handed as well. So these things never bother me. It just depends how hard the hammer is and how hard you feel it, in my opinion. So that's what I think about that. How about you, PT?
I feel like the big swing isn't a
froze.
problem if it hits. And I do think it hits like in this movie. Like it's like, yep, great. And there's questions about whether like we could make some changes or whatever. But I think, yeah, I'll echo what you're saying, Hasib, that like it works. Like it's you're not like if you say something and it's like I didn't get it or it doesn't feel true, it doesn't feel plausible, doesn't feel connected to reality, then it becomes a like just huge awkward whiff of like, oh God, what were you doing? What were you trying to say? And I don't think that's what this is. I do think it has the problem of like hitting too close to home for a lot of people. And my two thoughts on it to add are that this I double checked that we hinted earlier, I think, that this had sort of a long gestational period. It was filmed in 2022. It was maybe going to come out sometime like it was like even like could it be in 2023 and then 24, and then it got moved to early 2025 when Warner Brothers very on brand was like, we don't know what to do with this, like we're idiots. And so they didn't want it to come out like hey, here's another awards push from the guy who made won all these Academy Awards with Parasite. It's very weird, and it's not in that same tone. So I whatever, that's fine. But I do think it was made in a time when the American politician that we're not naming, that we're all trying to work our way around not discussing directly, was not like felt like it was like, okay, that person is fading away. Here's a satire about like with echoes of that, but like trying to discuss sort of other issues baked in with that. But now that person is ascendant again and is in like all the disasters that are happening around him and is so like back in our lives with this like fire hose of craziness like constantly hitting us, then even seeing like the hints that were baked in, because there's so many other things. There was a great Letterboxd comment I saw, someone's review was, how many Scientologists did Bong Joon Ho have to talk to during the Parasite campaign? Because it's like, oh yeah, this is also Scientology. And like Jen, you were like, I have to buy this from Walmart. It's also Walmart because it's this big corporation that's also a religion. It has all these components to it, but it's so hard to not just see Trump when you look at this. So I think that like it is partly the flaw of hope from 2022, like lost in the terribleness of our present reality, that like we thought this was in the past, but now it's in our present again. And it like is grating and frustrating to have to see it again. And like on one level, grating to think about like, it would be nice if that movement was in exile heading to another planet somewhere. Like, God, wouldn't that be great? We would all sign up for that right now. But we don't have that. And so that's one thing. The other thing I will say is I've seen this a couple times. The most recent one was Jasmine sent me a clip from of Bong and his translator, whose name I'm forgetting, on the Colbert Show recently around this movie. And this question is asked where it's basically just like, there's a lot of parallels. Here are all the parallels to MAGA and the hats and the accent and the sort of lockjaw way of speaking and meandering thoughts. Like, was that intentional? And his response is, we've shown this in a lot of countries, and every country thinks this character is based on their crappy politician, their crappy reactionary far-right jerk. And so it's like, this is not like, let's not try to make Donald Trump special. Let's just like remember that he is like one of all of these like assembly line jerks that exist in the world and do these kind of things. And, you know, this is echoing off of that, and obviously borrows some iconography and borrows some behavioral things from him, but also from people in other countries and other parts of the world in history and other aspects of awful things. So yeah, I mean, in the end, I think it's a problem for the movie because like I think it's grating. I'm curious, who knows what life will be like in 15 years, but like, I wonder what it will be like in 15 years if we could be just like, oh yeah, like that felt like very different in the moment, or if it's going to forever taint the existence of it. But yeah, I don't think it's intentional for it to be as on the nose as it feels, is my short version of that long thing that I just said.
Right. And if you think about the timeline you just mentioned, in a lot of ways, it's a little bit prescient.
Yep.
But yeah. And that's maybe the problem, is that it's just purely the timing. Like if this had come out any other time, then people might be perceiving it differently. But
I mean, he does want to annex Canada, right?
We're all creepers now.
Yeah.
The thing that I actually really liked that was pretty subtle was that so many people signing on to join the Niflheim settlement, right, are being kind of exploited and used for their labor with the promise of, everyone, when they get here, is going to have a great life, right? And then we see, and there's never really a big deal made out of this, but we see in the scenes with Frank Marshall and kind of his, what's the word? Like a cadre? I don't know. Like when, you know what I mean? When in the behind the scenes, behind closed doors, right? It becomes very clear. And I think this comes out most when they're talking to, is her name Kai? At the dinner, right? Mickey's off in the corner scarfing down some very raw meat that's been made in a lab and is about to make him very sick. And they totally don't care about him, right? He's just there. Whereas they're kind of honing in on Kai to be like, look, we have this vision for a pure society, and we think you are the and you know, so whereas like, you know, she's the only one having that conversation with them. Everyone else who's working really hard on the ship with this promise of a better future, right, is the better future is not for them. And to me, that was the thing that was like actually pretty. It's not that the hammer was not as hard with that one. And so I think if people are fixating on kind of like Mark Ruffalo's impressions and his performance and the affectations and stuff like that, and kind of missing some of the other more subtle stuff. But we actually haven't managed to talk about this as a sci-fi movie. So that was kind of, I paired another question. Was there enough world building for you? A big criticism I have heard so far about the film is that it doesn't take as much advantage of its kind of sci-fi premise as it could, or that the political satire and the social commentary is sort of like sucking the oxygen away from what could be a more fully fleshed sci-fi world. And that's not necessarily my opinion, but that's an opinion I've heard multiple critics say. What are your thoughts on that? Like, was this satisfying enough as a sci-fi movie, regardless of the satire?
That's a bad take, Jen.
I almost was like, is this a straw man argument? Am I just bringing this so that we can trash it? Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. No. Well, I think that is somebody who only has experienced sci-fi as a set of Star Wars movies, or, you know, one of those big franchises that is about building a mythology and, you know, 18 spin-offs. I say that with a giant Star Wars poster over my shoulder. But I do think that, to me, the whole point of the premise is the kind of shrinking of the world to this ship and the people aboard it. And that is all that we need to do, right? I mean, I think the easiest comparison for me, sorry if I'm basic with this, is just WALL-E, right? Like, I didn't need like a whole explanation of everything WALL-E had been through, and it's kind of that same level of world building where there's little hints in the background and there's, you know, offhanded remarks, and you just kind of get it, and you see how it's all put together. man, now I want to program a double feature of Wall-E and Mickey 17 at my local theater, or my living room. But I do think that like and this does fold into the other question, because to me it goes back to what was said at the very beginning between Hasib and Jen, which is like people haven't gotten this message, right? And so the whole sci-fi premise just is about showing you a comedically exaggerated way in which the corporation or the political leaders chew up and spit out the everyman. And everymen, you're not listening, and women, you're not listening to this message, and it's still not getting through. And so I found that, the whole absurdity is kind of so over the top that I started to tune it out. And I actually would suspect that's kind of what they want you to do. Tune it out and just focus on the humanity at the core here and how devalued that humanity is. And that's kind of the point of the sci-fi premise. So that's a bad take, Jen.
And to piggyback on Greg, another part of the sci-fi premise is colonialism and how we don't respect the people or the species on the land that we're trying to inhabit in the first place. So, yeah.
Nicely said. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
right. And I think, in addition, I wonder if, there are just people who are like, they take in media solely as a way of adding to the Wikipedia pages or whatever fan versions of wikis that they have. And they're just like, but I wanted to fill out my Mickey 17 wiki, like with more information about the blah, blah, blah. And like, that's the way they do it. And that's fine. But like, I don't know if they should be listened to as the people to like, everything must be catered to them as a way of structuring narratives. But I do wonder if there's a degree, and this might be some cognitive egocentricity coming through of, I saw the trailer for this movie like 24 times. I assume Greg and Hasib, who also are frequent moviegoers, Jen goes to the movies too sometimes, but like she's got a life. The three of us do not. Like you saw the trailer a bunch, like the line that I use of like, things weren't working out on Earth, and so I signed up for this thing, seemed to hint that there was going to be this thing about like stuff was happening on Earth. And like what we get instead is just this kind of like, they borrowed money from a mobster and he's mad, he wants his money back, he's going to, torture them otherwise. Like, okay, like that's not like a lore thing. That's not like there's a gigantic movement of whatever on Earth. So, I wonder if there were people who just like had thought it for themselves, like, oh, part of the story is going to be some big thing, which, I mean, even making a Wall-E comparison is like, something big happened on Earth. Like, we don't see it. We don't necessarily get everything, but we get these snippets of it. But in this movie, it is like more like colonial, like, Earth-based colonial stuff of just like some people had their like weird things they wanted to do. And so they're like, I'm going to go off and find a new place. Look, I found a new place. No one's here. Someone's here. They're not real. They're not actual people. Like it's my place now. And we can do the weird things that I want to do. And now we all live in America. So, that's like, that's the story, like the story of, like, say, like the Mayflower is not, well, what was happening in England? What was going on in England? It's just sort of like, they weren't welcome or they didn't feel welcome. That's all you need. Like they had to tend to leave for some reason. So like, I don't know. Like I felt like the ship felt really well built in terms of like the world of it and those tiers. And the dynamic between them and then this planet they were trying to colonize and these creatures that are just like, please don't bother us. Like, what are you doing? Like, please give back our people and don't attack all of us. I thought all that was there and all that made sense. So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Greg is right. Jen, that's a really bad take. I don't even know why you brought it up.
And you all complimented the host. Where are we at now?
That's Stephanie Meyer's the host. That's what no, I'm just kidding.
The only thing I'll add to this is that the food in particular looks so weird and unappetizing in this movie that I feel like it's little details like that. And just the fact that the Mickey's body printer looks like a bad MRI machine, and like, like there's a lot of production design that actually went into this that I think elevates the story a bit and does a fair amount of storytelling on its own. So Yeah, I guess I just brought that take so we could disagree with it. Sorry. but I think something that we just said is now making me want to hop over to a question I had later on in terms of like, because part of me when I was watching this was like, oh, I'm envisioning the more focused version of this movie that's just about Mickey 17 and this idea of him dying over and over again, and the pure sci-fi, more sci-fi, less satire version of this movie. Part of me was like, oh, wouldn't that, like, would this be better? I kept asking myself while I was watching, would it be better if it weren't trying to do all these other things, right? If it were just focused on Mickey. And then I sort of realized, well, but clearly there's a reason that Bong Joon Ho felt like we needed to do both the sci-fi and the satire together. And so this is the question I want to pose to all of you, is that kind of what does combining those two things give us? Like, why did he feel like it was necessary to use the conceit? Because, clearly he read Mickey 7 and saw something that he wanted to turn to a film, right? So like, why did he feel like this conceit of Mickey being reprinted and dying over and over again, why was that the best way to tackle the themes that he usually loves to tackle in his movies of capitalism and classism, and in this case sort of like political figures and their egos and the sort of dispassion and kind of indifference of both corporations and of colonialism? Like, why is it that this is the way into these social themes?
Now you did too good a question, so now we don't know what to say.
I mean, just on a basic level for me, just Mickey being reprinted over and over and over again. We've all had like minimum wage jobs before, and how soul sucking they are. When I used to work at a CVS as a cashier, I felt like I was dying every day. So literally, that's what Mickey felt like to me in this movie.
Mm.
I think that's a great comparison. And it's, again, this may be fitting into that, like, well, it's really obvious, but I don't think this movie is shying away from the obvious thing, is that they don't care. Like, the people in charge do not care about what happens to you, and they don't care like what happens. And if you die, you're just going to be replaced by someone else who can also do that task that they need done to complete this cog in this one branch of this whole machine that they have made, that they benefit from, and they get to live a great life, and they don't really care about you. And so this is just a literalization of that, because he gets to keep dying and he gets to be reprinted and then put back out, but like put into situations where it's like designed for him to die. And they would do that if they could, if they didn't have some rules and laws and whatever potential punishments that might annoy them in some way. I don't think they would have any problem. And in the past, there have been historical instances of just being like, yeah, go into this thing that we know is going to kill you because we want to find out what's going to happen. And how bad would this be? It's like, oh, it's pretty bad. Okay, I guess we should not put this chemical into this product. Fine. And they go from there. So I think it is a literalization of the complete lack of value of human life from the people in charge in the upper classes of a society.
Yeah, because it's funny to me, because when he first started signing up, like the people that were signing him up were like, wait, are you sure you want to do this? Did you read this all through? And I was just like, oh man, I don't think he knows what he's going through. So yeah.
Well, and I think of how many people get hired into a job like that, right? And when you first brought up like a minimum wage job, it reminded me of the family in Parasite with the pizza boxes, right? That kind of first act where it's like, if you fulfill a role, even if it's just something stupid like folding the pizza boxes, then you're of use, but they were cast aside because they weren't folded sharply enough, right? I believe is the plot point there, and it's similar there. And I like that story about Mickey 17 so much. And what I think, to try to answer Jen's very good question, what stands out into my mind is, and this is the moment we're in our politics in this country right now, where you have a whole bunch of Mickey 17s going, you were supposed to hurt the creepers, not hurt me, right? Like, how dare you? And I think that what people are learning around the world, unfortunately, is that we are just as expendable as the other, right? That these movements on the far right get their power from blaming and naming the other, but they care not a whit more about you than they do the other. And, Mickey doesn't exactly fall into that category, but a lot of the people on this ship seem to be painted in that direction, that you are only as useful as how well you fold the pizza box, and then you get destroyed as you might need to. So I think the answer is that you cannot effectively tell the Mickey story without showing also this piece of the kind of psychological control that happens when you other somebody. By making it the creeper, I think it's so smart, because genocide, everybody else is like, these things are disgusting.
They're so cute.
Why would you think they're sentient? Why would you think they're human? Why would you think they care about their babies? And I mean, everything I just said has been disgustingly applied historically to some population on this planet across some bullshit. Sorry. Oh my God, I swore. Hasib promised PG-13 and I swore. Oh my goodness. But it has been applied, and they're always wrong and they're always hateful and bigoted. But it just keeps getting used over and over again. So I think Bong Joon Ho wanted to play with both, right, in a smart way.
While we're criticizing this movie, I think my main criticism of this movie. Sorry, Jen.
No, you're good.
My main criticism of this movie was Kai felt like such a integral part of the plot in the first half of the movie, and at some point she seemed to have gotten ditched. And I feel like there might have been a 2 hour and 20 minute or 2 hour and a half, 2.5 hour movie version of this, or cut of this, that where she plays a larger role in the second half, because like after the threesome scene and she threatens to tattle or snitch on them, and then Naomi Aki's character, what's her name? Somebody help me out here.
Nasha.
After Nasha and Kai's character, they're discussing it in the underneath the stairwell. You just don't see her ever again after that.
Oh, that's a good point.
So
she's there at the end, at the ceremony at the very end, with like a new friend. But yeah, like she's gone.
Friend.
She's gone. Well, and I mean, and that, it
my
said,
aunt lived with her friend too. Yeah.
Yes, since we're opening the they just like a whole lifetime of roommates. But when you're opening this door, I would say that that character is the one where it does have that feeling of like, oh, this was cresting to be a 3-hour movie at one point, and part of the debate around it, which I had always assumed was Bong Joon Ho being like, this is the movie I want to make, and the studio being like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Please make this more commercial. And him being like, no, and them just fighting over final cut. But I wonder if there really is he was trying to get it down to a more manageable size, and cuts were made there. And there's of course people who are they're bisexual, they're attracted to both men and women, but it feels a lot like Kai is coded as being attracted to women, except for in a time of grief, really wanting to hook up with Mickey 17, and then being mad when that doesn't actually happen. And it was like, again, like you just say that, it's like, okay, like that's something that can happen in real life, but it's like, why is this happening in this movie? That was one of those like sort of threads that just felt like, okay, I guess that doesn't really matter, and was just sort of there to do two things, to sort of move the plot forward, to like get to a different level of conflict between some of the characters, and also to make sure we got the Elliott Smith song Twilight playing in the background to refer to Robert Pattinson's most famous franchise. All due respect to our friend's love of the Batman, but still, Twilight is his most famous franchise.
So the other thing that doesn't finish her arc is that she has that moment in the dinner scene I was talking about earlier, where she says like, am I just a uterus to you? And there's zero follow-up on that at all. Like, and part of that is because the creepers are there, and that conflict escalates, and that kind of overtakes the plot. And so we never get to see what Marshall trying to establish a colony on Niflheim is like. And presumably that's when she would come back into play, as like her having the opportunity to be like, no, I'm not going to be a part of your, pure society or whatever. So, and I would say our same argument while we're making this criticism goes for Timo, because I did like the idea of Mickey's dirtbag best friend getting him into this mess, and his character as being kind of the people who don't play by the rules somehow always skate by and take advantage of the system that is exploiting everybody else. I kind of liked the role that he was kind of playing in this ecosystem of characters, but at the same time, there just wasn't enough time to kind of tell a story about him in any kind of complete way. What was happening with the drug ring that he was starting, right? So yeah, there are kind of a lot of unfinished threads of story in this that, again, either if we had a longer version probably could have been completed, or maybe they just shouldn't have been there to begin with. I'm not sure, but actually that's a segue into
not to keep kicking the straw man from before, but everything that you are talking about is the world building that's happening around the edges to be and also there's this drug use that's happening, and also there's these criminal people, and they've infiltrated the ship because they're so fixated on it, and it's yeah, I don't know if I care about that. I don't know if that's that important. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind Tebow existing as that dirtbag friend who only shows up when he needs something and or to use you. That doesn't.
My name is Greg, PT. My name is Greg.
Perfect. But that was fine. But it does make it all feel a little bit. Some of it feels undercooked, and when there's already a few of those things that maybe are not connecting with some people, I think that can add up to part of why I think some people are not feeling like this is a satisfying meal and as a movie, even though I don't know. I think it is. Hasib, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, it's totally fine. I kind of like Timo's role in this movie because there's always people who are working class, but they're also you know what? I can still take advantage of the system. But the one thing I wanted to bring up was, in terms of performances, great performances, I love Stephen Yeun playing smarmy guys. It's Sorry to Bother You. And in a different context, I guess Burning as well. He's kind of smarmy in that as well. So him playing these roles, they really work. So I was really into his character in this movie.
Yeah, my response was going to be, I'm never going to complain about Stephen Yeun showing up because he's so fun to watch, and that's why all the way back to Glenn, everybody was so mad when we lost Glenn because he's so great to watch and so on. And it's funny because we didn't delay long in recording, but somehow it feels like I saw this movie 3 weeks ago, even though, it's only a week old. And it's as you brought up some of those side plot lines, it's oh, I'd forgotten that was a part of that, or that piece wasn't in there. And I really am struggling personally to decide if that means those are flaws or if that's just kind of more indicative of how life is, right? That you get these kind of vignettes in your life of oh, there's a whole drama going on. I don't know, I had this recently on the subway. It's those people are having a whole life right now, over there across the car, and I just get this little snippet and then I move along, and there's something about that's kind of nicely naturalistic here. It just doesn't fit into the kind of the plot of the film. I do just want the record to show Jen was requesting an extra half hour with just a crazy sex planet, I think is what she was requesting. Yeah, but I do think the plot line around Kai, it could have been its own drama, right? That's a psychological thriller about, oh, I got recruited into this cult and now I'm just here for breeding and it's awful and eugenic and so on. So it is a little startling that she disappeared, but I didn't actually feel that in the theater. There's something about all these plot lines you're mentioning, oh yeah, it didn't really go anywhere, but in the theater, I just really enjoyed the kind of ending we got, and it's so triumphant in the rise of the proletariat. I'm yep, we're there, we're good. Let's not worry about it. But I do see these flaws you're all pointing out.
So the question I was trying to segue to, the great segue killer, that should be your nickname now. but was that because one of the sort of quote unquote underbaked storylines is the kind of macaroon scheme gone wrong and the loan shark, right? That kind of finds them, goes to not only the ends of the earth, but into outer space to find them to collect on his debt, right? But to me, I think the redeeming factor is the weird thing where this loan shark guy, whose name I can't remember now, really likes watching people die and like recording people dying and very slowly. And so I feel like there has to also be a connection there to both Mickey 17 dying quickly in a lot of cases, right? But we deriving pleasure from watching people die. And I think in the outline, I also mentioned that there's Marshall says something towards the end when he has the bombs rigged to both 17 and 18. They're the two buttons. Toni Collette's character wants to push them both at the same time, and he says, "No, one at a time. Watching them die one at a time is more fun, isn't it?" And so, what is the deal with this kind of recurring theme about witnessing people dying and the pleasure that some people derive from that? Like, is that plugged into the sort of exploitative kind of "we don't care about you" theme that we were talking about earlier? Is it its own thing? Like, what do you think?
What strikes me about that is you're not that far from reality TV. Spoken as somebody who avoids a lot of reality TV, but like, what is the end of the full devaluation of those you can exploit is not just not valuing their life, but the perversion of that into now let me derive pleasure from seeing them die in a unique and horrifying way. And, I am one of those sickos who shows up at the horror movies and loves like a good, gnarly, crazy death scene. There were some wild ones within the last year. And like, I do sit there sometimes and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why? And you feel that kind of depravity so fully, that it does feel like, that when you're put in those shoes in that kind of experience, you're like, well, I can't really enjoy this so much, or I shouldn't enjoy this so much. And so to have that be one of the things that ties together the real sickos in the film characters, I think is kind of a reminder that like it's all headed there. That right? There's no bottom, I guess, is the shorter answer version of that answer.
Remake of The Running Man coming this fall from Edgar Wright. So there's definitely that. There's definitely that element to it of the sort of the grotesque. But I also think there's like it's a way of underscoring the escalation of how depraved and indifferent people can get when they have so much, that not only like it's the people who go beyond not caring about how much suffering happens because of them to wanting to actively see it and taking like enjoyment and pleasure in it because they have so much. It's like the benefits of everything, of all these things, like great meals and a comfortable bed and lighting that like most of the ship doesn't have, but they have like lights that they can hang out in. All of that stuff no longer like provides joy or fulfillment, and so they need to like not just have taken things from all these people to get like their comforts. They need to see things be taken away from others to feel something and to feel like, oh, like I have something here. And it's very unfortunate that we have real world parallels we can point to of people who are indulging in their sadism and enjoying seeing other people be harmed or tortured in various ways, metaphorically or literally, to be like, yes, their lives are worse than mine. That's good. Like makes me good. That means that's a good thing for me.
Just really quick. This movie is about institutions and how it slowly kills all of us. And in our society, loans are killing us slowly. And that man is enjoying every bit of that torture in that one scene where we see Mickey and sorry guys. Timo, yes. In that scene, he's just watching that man just slowly slowly pick body parts off him and slowly wither away. And that's another example of Bong just being like, our system sucks. Capitalism is the worst. Look at what it's doing to all of us. So,
Right. So it's again, it's like making concrete or visible the financial death. Right. No, I like that a lot. There also seems to be kind of a psychological component. Like maybe it's trying to explain why people like watching other people die and suffer, because I think, to me, I keep going back to the continued question that Hasib opened with in his opening bit. What is it like to die? Like everyone wants to know. Everyone has this fascination with death. And so I'm wondering if wanting to watch people die and watch people suffer and kill them slowly has something to do with us trying to cope with our own reckoning with our own death. There's also the idea that like a fear of death at the end of the day is narcissism and egoism, right? Which is very much connecting back to Kenneth Marshall. That like, you know, as over the top as Mark Ruffalo's performance is, that, and we think that it's so, that's so unrealistic, it's so over the top, you know, barring real life parallels. But that we are all kind of that egotistical too, or people, you know what I mean? Like people aren't that far from that, because that everything comes from this fear of our own death and not knowing what death is actually like. But that might be too generous to the people who are under fire in this movie.
Well, it's also interesting because I think in a different sci-fi movie, the ability to reprint yourself is a form of immortality for the Kenneth Marshalls of the world. And I guess we get that weird dream sequence kind of towards the end, or the daydream that kind of plays with that idea a little bit. But it's interesting to think about a society where you could live forever or get reprinted again, but instead we've used that technology to like just totally exploit and traumatize the weakest in our society, seemingly, right? And so I think that choice matters both from Bong Joon Ho and also for the characters, you know, that's how this society uses that technology. So, Jen, I think that's a moment, because I'm trying to make you answer a hard question finally. I think we should transition over and ask ourselves what the thesis of all this is, because we've talked about so many disparate pieces that we're all really interested in. Can you distill it into a
thesis, please?
There.
Right. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, let's try to pull it all together. And I feel like this is the second time you've pulled that, where you're like, Jen, succinctly sum up everything we've talked about and completely clarify what this movie is about for us. But I'll do my best. So I do feel like, you know, this movie's called Mickey 17. But I do think the one thing we haven't talked about yet that is a big factor in terms of what this film is trying to say is how Mickey 17 is different than all the other Mickeys, right? And in particular, Mickey 18, right? Mickey 18 has a lot more rage. He's willing to try to assassinate Marshall, right? He kind of looks down on Mickey 17 to be like you're so weak and passive, and what, like, these people are feeding you food that's making you throw up, and you're just saying thank you for dinner, right? Like, what is wrong with you, right? Like, and I think when we position Mickey 17 as this kind of like passive, life happens to him as opposed to him taking agency in his own life, this goes back to what Greg was talking about, is about the exploitation of the everyman. I think that we are all Mickey 17, right? We're not Mickey 18, we're Mickey 17, right? The average person is just kind of like trying to make their best and make their best decisions, going along with the system, assuming the system is in place for their benefit, assuming that there is no alternative to the systems in place, right? And I think that's a hard look in the mirror. I think for a lot of us to be like, yeah, I am Mickey 17. I'm just trying to be polite and apologizing for something bad that someone else is doing to me, right? And I think I will turn one of my questions into an answer to Greg's question, in that I think, because I had originally put a question here about like, well, how do we interpret, what is the deal with the button, Mickey's backstory, and how he blames himself for the death of his mother because when he was a child, he pushed this red button he wasn't supposed to and she crashed the car. And then Mickey 18 kind of reveals that that's a fallacy, right? That he's like, it wasn't your fault. It was the way they designed the car. It was a defect in the car, right? So, and then the other piece that I want to connect, this is going somewhere, I promise, is the question of the sauces, right? Sauces are the true sign of civilization. I think the sauce is actually the metaphor for the movie because it's like people are enjoying the sauce. They're looking up the sauce. They want to make more sauce, but they don't want to think too hard about what's in the sauce, right? And the same thing with Mickey 17. He has spent his whole life blaming himself for his mother's death because he thinks he's the one that pushed the button and then caused her death. When in fact, there's all this other stuff that went into it. The company that made the car, right? The design of the car, who put the button there anyway, right? Like there are all these things that were outside of his control that actually contributed to his mother's death. But he, at the end of the day, blames himself, right? And so we're on the hook for all of these big institutions making all these decisions for us. And we're not questioning what's in the sauce. We're just eating the sauce, right? So that's my best attempt to try to tie a bunch of things in this movie together. And ultimately, that's a pretty depressing, other than the fact that Mickey at the end of the day is the one that everyone likes and is the one that is good. And he actually does end up saving the world through his like weird diplomacy.
Saving
right?
a world.
That's true. Yes. So yeah, I think it comes down to that's why the movie is centered around Mickey as a character and why it's Mickey 17 and not Mickey 18 or 16, right?
So given all of that, let me ask. So the parallel obviously is he presses the button when he's a child and his mom dies, and then he presses the button at the end of the movie and blows up the reprinter. Is that him displaying agency and control over what happens in his life and in his world? Or is that just another situation where all of these systems have unfolded and existed and he just exists bouncing among the cogs and got to a point where he just did that? And to what degree is he liberated at that point versus to what degree is it just the system just continues? And I say that because Naomi Aki's character, and I've already forgotten, Nasha, like getting the sort of mantle of like, and now she leads the board or whatever the sort of representative group was called, is just kind of like, oh, okay. Like there was something in that, and I do not remember the detail. There was something in that description of, and now she's the person who was put up there and in charge and she's leading and that's going great, where it felt like, this is not going to be necessarily like perfect. Like there's always whoever's in charge. Whenever there's someone in charge, there's always a problem. And so, I guess I don't know. I don't have an answer for this. I'm curious what you, Jen, or anyone here thinks is like, to what degree does he have agency at the end versus it's just a system unfolding in a different direction? Cynically,
I think it's another manufactured choice for him, right? That it's actually just the illusion of agency. Because honestly, because he has hesitation, he doesn't really want to. He's like, wait, I don't want to push a button. Why are you like? But in theory, first of all, everyone's telling him to push the button. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of being pressured into doing it, right? And then the other thing too is that arguably that machine's getting blown up no matter what. Like I don't think him, like it all seems very manufactured, right? The idea of like, oh, Mickey, you're the one who's been suffering at the hand of this machine. Now you get to be the one to blow it up. But at the same time, society has kind of conspired to set that situation up in a way that it doesn't really, it feels like a hollow sense of agency, which is sort of how we all feel every day, right?
The darkest pod we've ever had. I was also very
Comrade Bone.
I was very distracted by Jen saying, "Oh, Mickey," like you were gonna start singing, "Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind." Hey, Mickey.
So Mickey Mouse dolls did come up when I searched for the creeper plush. It was very confusing. It was like all creeper plushes and Mickey Mouses.
I'm still hanging on when Greg said Jen aside about something that Jen had said, and I've just been thinking about genocide ever since, which is relevant to this movie.
Oh no!
That is what they are doing.
Oh, guys,
they are trying to commit it on the creepers. Don't get me wrong. Anyway,
all right. I'll try to rein us in by saying I think those were really good tacklings of what makes this movie so tricky and so difficult. But but so ultimately rewarding as a part of that. And I don't find Bong Joon Ho to be super cynical. He's very real about the systems and the way they entrap us. And yet I think, to me, there's still something slightly related to hope, which maybe it's just the darkest kind of hope, which is like, hey, all the systems are terrible and they're just going to keep gnawing away, and you're going to be part of it even if you think you're liberated. So all you can do is like pick the nicest guy and make him the one who makes like some choices, and like pick the best
Give him the
amongst
button.
you and cling to that. And the most hopeful parts of this film, I think, are Nasha and Mickey. And even in the early stages, they're the ones having great sex when everybody else is having a terrible life and eating the terrible food. So it feels to me like the message remains like it is the humanity in us that makes us worthwhile, and the humanity in the creepers. And if we can just, despite all of the awful systems that are literally chewing us up and spitting us out, if we can just somehow recenter us on that basic idea that who we are matters and we can give everybody equal dignity, that's what matters. So I find that the message or the thesis is somewhere closer to that for me, or at least the way I'm interpreting it.
Yeah, that's the thing with all Bong's movies. He's hypercritical of our society and all the ills of it, but at the end of it, he's a very hopeful dude. And he has that hope in certain types of people and characters. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Nasha is the one, because there's that one scene where they show she gets into the incubator machine with him as he's dying, right? She's the one who still cares. She's the one who's willing to put herself at risk to be with him at a moment where literally everybody else is like, oh yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Right? He's just gonna get reprinted. Who cares? So I do like that more hopeful reading of it. And it could very easily be that now the thing that was his bane has now become his triumph, right? That the button is being repurposed in terms of like the meaning of it. So I hope that's the that's the actual reading and not my kind of like, oh, we're all
I'd forgotten about that moment. And so just, because of what this awful country is going through right now, empathy, right?
Yeah.
It's not the bane of the modern world. It's the hope of the modern world. It's what makes us human and what gets us there. So it's a little cheesy to say it, but I do think that matters. And if this film is beating people over the head with a hammer, at least it's one trying to get them to be decent to each other and try to respect everybody and not trample on creepers or Mickeys.
Nasha arguably has the most poignant line in the whole movie, because she's the one who says, we were all just trying to live our lives, and then you showed up with your BS. Right? And that moment for me rang the most true, where I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to live my life out here. Like why do we have to do all this other stuff? Right? Why does all these other problems have to exist? So I do like reframing her as kind of the heart and soul of the movie, because she's the one who kind of like is the only one who cares about Mickey.
But Jen, who cares about heart and soul when you could talk about awards and Oscars?
There we go. Oh. Thanks, Greg.
Wow.
And I'm the one who kills segues? What's happening?
No, he just birthed the segue.
He pushed it, man.
No. Yeah.
I mean, but like sometimes when you do it, you're murdering it.
The two of you are like yin and yang. Like you're the destroyer and he's the creator, right?
Which does remind me. Well, whatever. I won't do it. I was going to ruin the segue.
Twins.
It was going to be a Star Trek original series reference. People will know. Go ahead.
I'm going to kill the segue.
Do your segue.
I'm going to kill the segue right now.
Oh, thank you.
And you're welcome. And Greg mentioned the sex between Nasha and Mickey. Let me just say, that drawing of the different sexual positions, put it in the MoMA. I loved it. All right. That was a fantastic drawing.
And it becomes a plot device.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Jen wants the plushie of the creeper. I want a print of the positions.
That says everything.
That's the poster I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of different positions you could put yourself in,
Oh, no.
who's in a position to win awards for this?
Oh my gosh.
Jen, in the sex position drawings, who was best supporting the other?
Oh my god.
Which
so glad to
position
be
was original versus adapted?
All right. I'm just playing the music. Shut you up. Make it stop.
I'm so glad to have been a part of this.
All right. So my suspicion is that this is going to be a relatively short conversation, but who knows? I should never say that, I guess, on the show. So does this have any chance at all of getting any Oscars? I mean, Warner Brothers act from the get-go acting like it's ashamed of this movie. It is tanking at the box office. It's already going to VOD. What do you think is in the future of this movie?
I had a great time with it, and I'm glad it came out.
He rests his case, Your Honor.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get nominated for anything either. As much as I love this movie, like, I don't think Warner Brothers is going to try to push this for any awards, and that's the main problem. And honestly, I don't think it might get anything unless some people feel or love Robert Pattinson so much that they might nominate him. But it's hard for me to see that in a genre movie.
Yeah.
Maybe visual effects, but I think it's buried so at the start of the year that it's going to be hard for people to remember it at the end of the year. So
I always think back around this time of year to when Greg and I reviewed Air. And just because it was the only thing that had come out that was even remotely an Oscar contender, we were like, well, maybe all these. No. So yeah, I think just by virtue of the fact that it's coming out so early and is not doing super great, it doesn't seem like I would honestly love and could possibly see, unlikely, but could see Golden Globe for Robert Pattinson or SAG. Like that, there's at least a hope of like potential chance of that if people like the performance stuff and like him. I think I was hearing on another podcast that he just has so many movies coming out in the next year that it could be one of those things where it's like people just are like, oh, you're having a year.
Yeah, this is the Wonka of his Chalamet run.
And honestly, if we're giving Hugh Grant nominations for Heretic, like that has to set a precedent, right? Like, why then? How do we not nominate Robert Pattinson for this?
Yeah, I could totally see him getting a Golden Globe nom.
Yeah, I mean, I think his performance is the thing I would most want recognized for the movie, just because he does have to have that balance, not just in the two main Mickeys, but even going back to the earlier ones, that they can't be too much like 17, or 17 can't be too much like them, because they need to at least hint at the idea that each one is a slightly different flavor or variant on the character. So 17 and 18's differences make more sense. So yeah, I mean, I do like that. I wonder if if there is a path where all of the movies that have a lot of visual effects in them are also not good and people don't respond to them, that we get to the end of the year and it's like, well, I guess Mickey 17 could be nominated, and that ends up like, or at least having as much attention in the Bake Off as some of these other movies. But I don't think that's likely. I think it will end up being kind of.
I think you have an Avatar-shaped problem with that. Like, even if Avatar
for a win.
Is terrible, yeah, certainly.
But they got to get 4 movies to lose to Avatar.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is I completely agree. Probably not winning awards, but there's this Bong Joon Ho movie to cable television show pipeline that has already yielded Snowpiercer and has maybe still a Parasite show coming, right? People have heard this, right?
I think that's not happening now.
Well, I don't think that was a good idea.
Yeah.
This is one I would take. Like, if you stretch this into 10 episodes, I feel like you could do some of that world building and it could work, right? Whatever the question on the rewatchables is, like, could it be a prestige TV show? I think it could, and maybe would work longer. I don't think you're getting Pattinson to sign on for 10 years of his life, but, who's a cheap Pattinson? Don't say Glenn Powell, Jen. Do not say Glenn Powell.
Wait,
how dare you, Jen? I'm leaving this show, Jen.
Wow. I don't even. Okay. What I was gonna say was like, I want the crime drama series based on the guy who invented was the first multiples crime, the serial killer guy.
Oh yeah.
How fun would that be?
That was a great gag too.
Yeah.
That was a good bit.
Yeah. So that's the thing I would think would be best suited for serialized episodic storytelling would be just a multiples murder a week. All right. Do we want to say anything before we go about, because I think I was just listening to The Town. Everyone's kind of talking about like, oh, Warner Brothers is in trouble because like they, this movie is like, I think the budget for this movie was like $200 million and they're not making any of that back. So, I mean, is this the death knell for like independent sci-fi movies? Is this going to affect Bong Joon Ho's career at all? I don't know. So what impact does this have? A larger impact in the future of movies in general?
I'm just blown away that they wasted $80 million on promoting this movie. Like when I saw the budget and it was like what 113 or 120 to make the movie, and I'm like, yeah, that's a lot. But it almost hit that much in promotion, and I'm like, wait, what? That just seemed like a big waste of resources, in my opinion. Like, I was watching an NBA game the other day, and they had a whole Mickey 17 promo with Lonzo Ball, and I'm like, wait, I don't see the crossover here. I don't know why you guys are doing this. So I think that's more of a Warner Brothers Zaslav problem. Like, it felt like they were lollygagging around with how they were going to promote this movie and when they were going to promote this movie, and then on top of that, they just overextended themselves. It feels like, and that's just Zaslav being an idiot, in my opinion. So
I was wondering how much of that promotion budget was them having to reissue posters and trailers to put the new release date. Because I think they changed the release. Once they moved it to 2025, there were 4 release dates. It was January, then it was April, then it was later in April, then it was March, like early whatever came out. Like
switched 4 times, according to the Collider.
Well, and I was still seeing the trailer with the wrong date in like mid-February. I was like, this is not an April movie anymore. This is coming much sooner. I'm not worried about Warner Brothers because we all ran out and saw The Day the Earth Blew Up this weekend, right? You guys, the Looney Tunes movie? We were all there? No? Don't worry, they have Alto Nights coming out on Thursday, which we're all racing to, right?
I've thought about going to see Alto Nights.
2 De Niro's instead of 2 Pattinson.
I don't know if I'm doing that or not.
Written and directed by the guy who wrote Goodfellas with Martin Scorsese. Yeah.
So it's going to be a tough year for Warner Brothers. That's my takeaway. But that's okay, because Bong Joon Ho taught me, hey, let's not root for corporations. Let's tear them all down, right? Warner Brothers doesn't care about you, Jen. So don't care about them.
I think the bigger problem here is that it's not Bong Joon Ho. I'm not worried about Bong Joon Ho. Bong Joon Ho will get movies made. I'm worried about other people who want to make sci-fi or bigger budget movies, original idea movies, and studios are just going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to give you that high of a budget.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was my concern too.
But I don't know if this is
the wrong ideas.
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to change that. Like, I think we already were there. Like, this movie only had that budget because of Parasite and because of the success he had. So it's like, if you want $120 million for your sci-fi movie, you should go win Best Picture and then come back and we'll give that to you. And, that's not great. That's not ideal, but I don't know if this, I don't know if this changes anything. I feel like, if the studio, Warner Brothers or all the studios want to use this to build that narrative, they were building that narrative with something else. Even if this was a runaway success, it would be a unique unicorn that only it could exist because of this mixture of star and whatever, all the things that they would say, and then would still say no to the next person that's like $100 million for my new sci-fi idea. What do you think? They would say like, but could it be tied into like Airwolf or something from the 80s? And then they would maybe go ahead with it.
I love the Airwolf pull right there. That was fantastic. But I mean, I feel like this is also kind of like what happened with Damien Chazelle when he did Babylon after coming out with La La Land. So, yeah.
Oh, that's true. It's a good parallel. Yeah, the blank check for a director who just had a big success does not seem to be going away. So maybe
what's
that's
Sean
just...
Baker gonna do? No, he's
I
promising.
hope he makes 6 movies
promising
to add up to the $120 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna make the joke at some point that when I just forgot when I mentioned that this movie was basically going straight to VOD, I was like, Sean Baker is somewhere crying in a corner at this idea.
But Sean
But
Baker's also like extremely proud at being cost efficient. Like
That's
when I
true.
was at the New York Film Festival and they were interviewing him, he was talking about how he was trying to cut corners and how like he's extremely proud on how he can save money. So I'm not worried about him ever blowing a budget.
Yeah, he's not doing a franchise movie either or anything like that. Like I think.
I agree. But it will be interesting to see what he does next after Anora's success. If it will be any different than what he's been doing.
Anora coming soon to Disney Plus.
I'm
Did
also
you see
Already
that?
on Hulu.
Wait,
what?
is it Hulu or is it also Disney Plus?
It's Hulu on Disney Plus, but
Okay.
the new Disney princess is a joke I'm stealing from the internet. so.
Oh.
What do you all think Bong's going to do next?
Oh.
I have no. I have no idea. I have no answer. I'm just curious if anyone has a thought.
I mean, he's probably going to do something where the themes are more subtext than anything else now. if the pattern remains true, right?
I just watched Memories of a Murder for the first time.
Fantastic.
So incredible and so grounded in not what I expected. Although it's not totally different than Parasite, but with all the political upheaval that's happened in Korea, I want to see him kind of do that over there, right? If that film is kind of a portrait of the flaws in their legal system, that coup happening and all that, and let's see that. I think that'd be great.
I'm also fine if he just keeps making movies with creatures. Like, because this movie, Mickey 17, made me go finally watch, because I hadn't seen it before, watch Okja. Protect those piggies at all costs. Oh my gosh. Like,
PT actually liked my old review of Okja from when it came out, and that actually forced me to actually rewatch it today before this
Nice.
This recording. And I'm like, you know what? I still feel the same way. I like it, but it's also like a little uneven. So
Yeah, it was interesting. The people who are like, Mickey 17 has all these problems with being too literal and over the top and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like Mickey 17 works better for me than Snowpiercer and Okja, which like, I feel like there are people who really prefer one of those movies to it. And that may be why they felt a little disappointed here. But, you know, I don't know why I connected more with this one than, I mean, I liked those. I didn't, you know, I liked those movies are good. Don't get me wrong. I will admit I didn't see Okja until after Jen saw it. So that was my first watch. That's why I was looking through. But
nice.
in watching it, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I like this more, you know, necessarily. It has that unevenness. I liked more of the things that people thought were uneven in Mickey 17, I guess, than the unevenness I saw in the other two.
Yeah, I also think the pacing in Mickey 17 works a lot more. So
yeah.
Also, anyone complaining about Mark Ruffalo's character should just go watch Jake Gyllenhaal in Okja.
Oh no, Jake Gyllenhaal is way over the top.
I still don't totally understand what's happening there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to add the in Okja, just like total slam on.
Oh, just Jake. In general? Sure.
Yeah.
If you don't like this acting, go see Jake Gyllenhaal.
Coming soon to the Mickey 17 TV show.
By the way, another Bong movie where he has a double in that movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the twin CEOs. Yeah.
So the Parent Trap reboot? That's Bong's next,
You know
next
what?
movie?
Let's get Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee.
You know, I was going to say Multiplicity.
Oh,
I was thinking about that movie a lot while watching Mickey 17.
I'm into it.
I never saw that one.
He seemed very adamant about not calling them clones during the press run.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, somebody can maybe help me, or you can DM me or comment on any of my posts and tell me why he didn't want that, because I was confused.
Yeah, because the sort of moral argument against or for banning the technology is very similar to what happened when cloning, like when Dolly the sheep became a thing, right? Like people were like, you have to stop this. This is not natural. Like this is not like ethical. Like, so that's interesting. Maybe because he just wanted, I mean, again, that's a world building thing to call them multiples instead of clones. That's creating its own vocabulary as opposed to borrowing from pre-existing ones. So, but yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good
I
thing.
wonder if clones implies that whatever innate like soul, however you want to define that exists, is being copied over. Whereas with multiples, each multiple is its own independent creature and being. And that's why they don't want to, like they don't want to have two of them existing at once, not just because someone could use it to murder other people, but just because it's like there should only be one soul for this person. And if you make two, there's more. Whereas a clone is just like a straight up copy, and this isn't the same. I don't know.
If you look at Mickey 17 and Mickey 18, you would not call them clones of each other because they're not exactly the same. So that might be why.
And that's what makes Robert Pattinson's performance so good, is that it didn't take me. It took me less than a second to realize which Mickey it was. It took no effort at all.
Right. Yeah, so good.
You said Memento. I was thinking of The Prestige a lot, right? Because I forget which one gets killed every night, but like, I don't know. That would be my double feature if I had to pick a Nolan movie.
Wall-E or Prestige, man, you gotta pick one.
Triple feature.
Now you're just building a film festival around this concept.
No, it's you get a print of Mickey 17 and pair it with a different movie every night for a week. So now you've got two. You just need 5 more. No pressure.
17 Nights of Mickey, I think.
There you go.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I need more.
Walt Disney's gonna come to your doorstep and sue you.
All right, Hasib, you're a natural. You crushed it. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this movie. Actually, we across the board we were more positive about it than I thought we would be. I thought we'd be a little bit more split, so that's interesting. But thank you for bringing the Bong Joon Ho knowledge and the love. Where can folks find you if they want to reach out and share their takes with you, or if you want to plug anything that's going on?
Nothing to plug. On Letterboxd, I'm what am I? I'm Beeb Watches Film. On Instagram, I'm Hasib Posts Pictures. You can find me on Blue Sky, but I don't remember my Blue Sky because I don't use it as much as I should. But yeah.
All right, nice. And Greg, where can folks find you?
You can find Jen and I recently guest starred on Force Ghost Conversations talking about Frank Marshall's wife, Kathleen Kennedy, and kind of her reign at the head of Lucasfilm. And I'm going to compliment Jen and I because half the listeners won't listen. It's a very even-handed conversation because there's two camps. The Kathleen Kennedy is the devil and Kathleen Kennedy is our Lord and Savior. And we were somewhere in the middle, which is not hard in that giant space, but seems the most accurate one. So that was a fun conversation. Other than that, I'm on Letterboxd watching way too many movies on a real Barry Keoghan kick this week, which I highly recommend. So I'm at Ion Cannon, EYEONCANON. Hey, speaking of Letterboxd, PT, what else is on Letterboxd?
Why, Greg, you can find me on Letterboxd. My account is at PT McNiff, at PTMCNIFF. You can also find the show on Letterboxd at LTR Pod. You can look for the show on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can also just subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. Hit that subscribe button. Maybe leave a rating and a review. Why not? And if you've got any thoughts, opinions about the clone question or anything else we came up with today, please add it in there. Jen, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sopchockchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI, and you can find me on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. And since Greg is constantly badgering me about not plugging my own stuff, I'm going to do that for once. So on the longtake.substack.com, you can find, in addition to our show, you can find my written reviews of Marvel and Star Wars. So right now, Daredevil Born Again is happening. In spitting
literally
in the
right
face.
Now. We should be watching it right now.
Oh, it's true. I'm keeping you from watching it. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait.
Right. It came out like an hour.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it came out an hour and a half ago. Oops. Okay. Stay off the internet. But in spitting in the face of PT and Greg's terrible anti-Irish propaganda, I just wrote a Daredevil review that was St. Patrick's Day themed and talks about some of the potentially Irish themes in the last episode from last week. So that's up right now. Once Andor starts, I'll be reviewing those. So yeah,
Jen's Daredevil review is really, really well done, and it builds from small ingredients to something really cool. So please check that out, people.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm in.
And it's anti-Gen propaganda, not anti-Irish propaganda. Just to be clear.
Well,
we wanted to clarify our propaganda.
Can I tell you? I've been holding out. Antonio sent me the sickest burn on Jen that he was too embarrassed to send her on St. Patrick's Day, and it was the meanest thing he's ever sent. And I open up my text messages once an hour, and I just I eat it up. It's so delicious, but I will not reveal that here. So thanks, everybody.
The best part is that he sent it to me too separately, so he didn't want to send it to us together.
He didn't want a paper trail.
Wait, he left 2 paper trails.
Oh, that's true. No, he didn't. Okay, never mind. He didn't want you to co-conspire, I guess.
Yeah,
he's trying to minimize the damage. That's so amazing.
It's more of a stochastic, anyway.
Yeah,
it's a whole different idea.
I hate the bit, but I'm glad it makes you happy.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You'll also receive written reviews of new films with Oscar buzz, as well as any new installments of prop franchises like Star Wars and Marvel. Wait, we're talking about Bong Joon Ho. We can't end on Happy St. Patrick's Day. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, whatever.
Down with fascism.
Down with fascism.
Down with leprechauns and money. I don't know what.
Why'd you have to make it about
What
the Irish?
leprechauns do to you, Jen?
I mean, the evidence speaks for itself.
Again,
we have the whole British Empire to discuss, and yet we end up talking about leprechauns. What's going on?
I'm like, no, it's like
I'm see kneecap. The Irish are fine.
I'm like, yes. I'm just like Mickey 17. I just want to placate you and like politely support you. So in doing so, harm myself. That's really what this is about.